But I did see an interesting conversation. There's this guy that was, there's this show online where somebody goes and they sit in like a room full of people, right? And you sit in the middle and then other people can come sit across from you and then you guys debate for like 3 minutes.
20v1.
20v1.
Jubilee.
Yes. It's like the balloon popping for white nerds, right? And you know what I'm talking about, right? And then, so there was this guy like Sam Seder who was sitting down and then there was this like Latino kid who sits like across from him and he's having this argument about like the importance, I guess, of morality. And I think Sam, he was like asking where his morality comes from. I mean, we can probably bring up a clip or it doesn't matter. But it was interesting, this take that he had, like that you need a religious foundation for your morality. Otherwise you end up just justifying whatever makes you feel good. And you can't just keep doing whatever makes you feel good because you won't have good societal outcomes from that. And he was taking it to the extreme of you won't even have procreation. Like if you take it to its furthest logical conclusion, just doing whatever makes you feel good in the moment will lead to population collapse.
How? Because if you fucking, that makes you feel good and a couple gonna get past the goalie.
Yeah, but maybe you fuck with a rubber because having a kid might not make you feel good.
Just said make you feel good.
I mean, you're right, my boy.
It's Monday Night Raw every day.
Watch this. Watch this.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew.
I should say that the way that these shows are set up, I don't think he knows what everybody else's arguments are going to be used against him, but it seems like everybody else there knows what that person in the middle thinks, and they're there essentially to refute whatever their beliefs are.
Yeah, and usually they'll bring up a topic, and then whoever wants to go, they run in.
Can pop it.
Yeah.
Got it. But everybody comes there with ammunition, and that person in the beginning is not. I mean, you should be prepared to defend your beliefs, but you're going up against somebody who's already thought about every argument against you. So like one person is prepared, the other person is not. But continue.
And so we have a civil society. We have laws.
That is an interesting point that he was making right there, which is like if laws are based on like societal cohesion, but not some like moral framework, right? And society chooses to do something that we might morally object to. If you go along with the societal decision, you could get some shitty outcomes. So the idea of having this like moral framework that informs the societal decisions, much to their chagrin at times, can sometimes protect the human experience. You know, so if society all goes, hey, we should have slavery, and then the moral opinion is, no, that's wrong to subject people to that sort of behavior, you can thwart what society wants. I mean, this would be the argument like why you want something out of simply what makes people feel good to be what drives your like moral compass.
But couldn't you say the same the other way around? Because it's like, if you have the moral framework of religion, then we'll never have like gay relations.
No, 100%. That's why this is like I'm not trying to say one is right or wrong. I'm just saying it's kind of exposing the limiting factors of both. It's like we want the moral framework of religiosity when it comes to like how we treat one another, but then there are certain hangups with that religiosity, and then we go, actually, we don't want the religiosity. So it's kind of like we're picking and choosing what we feel like is right. I think he's using the term what civil society is, but like civil society throughout history has believed in some pretty nefarious shit. So yeah, it's an interesting, I keep on going. I don't want to interrupt at all, but I think it's like a really interesting discussion. Like how do you figure out what is the best version of society for the most people? And the reality is you kind of need to pick and choose from both. You know, you need a moral framework that you might object to that's brought to you by God or some higher power or something else. But you also need to break that framework so that certain people can have the rights that they deserve as part of this idea of a civil society. I don't know if you get there without both. You can't just rely on people to make the right decision, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I guess if you are an atheist or a secular person, you could argue that, all of these religious dogmas just come out of basically the same exact thing.
So you're saying that the morality is internal before religion?
If God doesn't exist, which I think would be his argument, that there is no God, so therefore the rules that are laid out within Judaism, Islam, Christianity are just human beings creating what they think the social structure should be.
And then the pushback someone might give is like, yo, we've created some fucked up rules that like really hurt a lot of people. And so that's so
over time, we've gotten better. Like, and this is the best time to live ever in the history of
100%. I guess my question is, I don't have the answer. My question is like, what is the impetus for that? Like, what made us realize, was it this internal morality that we have? Like, was it kind of like erupting and we realized, hey, this is actually wrong. This goes against what we want internally, and we like turned a blind eye to it? Like what?
Well, secular people might lean on like natural law and say like there are certain things that violate what it means to be like a fruitful human. So like infringing on someone else's life or like sexual violence, stuff like that. So like we know that internally as a species that is not good. So you could come to that conclusion outside of the
But why the fuck have we done it throughout the majority of history? If we know that it's so wrong, why have we done it continually?
Like murder and things like that.
Murder, you know, assault women, all these things. Like,
why you pointed at it? Like, that was kind of crazy.
I said the same.
You about to put the gloves down?
But keep going.
Or like Alex O'Connor.
He'd be a good person to.
Right, he's great. But he popularized this idea. I forget what philosopher came up with it, but it's I think it's ethical emotivism. So basically, it's this idea that you can basically just say like, something that happens, you could say, oh, boo that thing. So like murder, you're not saying like murder is right or wrong. You're not putting like a truth value on it. You're just saying boo murder. So like your emotional
reaction to murder
to something is what justifies your moral compass. And then ideally whatever the majority feels about a specific thing then creates the social fabric for how that's enlisted into law.
So then how have we been so comfortable with murder throughout history?
Well, within our own civil society, we're not. But then when it comes to like war, that's not murder.
So there are these little spaces where murder can exist.
Right, it's justified self-defense.
And what if it's a duel?
Well, then if both parties are consenting, then it's not murder.
It's
no victim.
It's not murder. What would it be called? It's just killing.
Yeah.
So murder is the idea that one party is not consenting. And I guess both parties are consenting to whatever's happened. It's like a boxing match where one person ends up dying. But I guess with a duel, like the explicit purpose is to kill
one of us will die.
Yeah.
And if they're both consenting to do it, assuming there's no coercion, then...
I guess maybe there's like a... So I guess maybe Sam's position is a little bit more optimistic about the human experience. It's like, hey, we are internally good and we know the right thing to do. And when we're put in situations where we're allowed to freely access our internal morality, we will act right.
Yeah. And I agree with that.
And then, but also I have empathy for the other guy, because it's like, he might subscribe to this idea like, there's been a lot of times where we don't act right and we act horribly towards one another. And then having this moral framework that's given by God or religion or whatever is a constant reminder that we cannot, fall victim to our instinctual desires in these in these moments.
But sometimes they've used that moral framework to do horrible things.
That's why this is an interesting discussion. I'm not saying that you're wrong about, but that's why it is really interesting, because there's so much evidence to us doing horrible shit. And it would be nice if there was this framework that we could look back to and be like, hey, we're doing horrible shit because God says it, or now I guess we have in America, the Constitution says it. It seems like we need something to remind us constantly, and that we can do a lot of justification for horrible behavior if we want. And we can even use religion for horrible behavior too. I mean, people have done it throughout history. It's happening right now, right? They're like murking these Christians out there in Syria. And I'm sure that there's like a moral justification for that. There's not this like boo murder. They're going, nah, the man upstairs justifies this in some way. I know a lot of these shows are like based on like dunking on one another, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish there was a lot more like good faith conversations for people online where it wasn't like, I'm going to win. It's more like, what do you feel? Oh, that's an interesting perspective. And like, I feel this way. And then that person goes, I can see why that's important. Unfortunately, this dunk culture that gets a click.
Yeah, but I thought they set it up that way.
But the discussion is like,
this is good.
It's like, here, keep going.
You have low reproductive birth rates. I just don't see a justification to be gay outside of it just feels good.
Whoa.
Pause. So... Whoa. That's okay. So it's an interesting feeling. Is like usually I think with at least in America, the feeling of, hey, this feels good, and this is good that we're talking about this, Miles. That is that like this feels good to go like.
We should let the experts speak on this. It's like
if someone's in the room, there's really no reason for us to talk. But he goes. It's not like it's right or wrong. It's just I don't feel a justification for it outside of this feels good. So his, I guess, argument hinges on this idea: just because something feels good doesn't mean that it is best for society. And he makes more wild shit.
Okay, so you're okay with a 45-year-old dad with a 19-year-old daughter as well?
He came ready. Right? This guy came ready, right? And this, I think we've even had this discussion here, which like, okay, you have people that are related having sex without the fear of reproduction. If they are consensual, is that okay? It feels both good to both of them. They're adults. They're consenting. and it doesn't, I guess, negatively impact society. Should we restrict their ability to do that?
Yeah, it's a fire philosophical debate.
Yes.
Like the first day in my philosophy class in like college, this was one of the questions they brought up.
This is what was it?
With Dr. Small.
Yeah, Dr. Small.
Same-sex incest.
Yeah.
Is that unethical?
Because same-sex removes the fear of producing a child that has some sort of issue.
So what's the problem?
So what's the problem? Now, this is where we go back to the O'Connor argument, where it's just like you have this innate feeling of boo, that's bad. What does that come from? Is that
because we've been told incest is bad?
Well, that's the thing. Have we been told it, or do we innately feel it's wrong? Like, is it built into our personal constitution?
And you could argue on a biological basis that humans feel that it's wrong.
Why?
Like through like pheromones. So like a person would be more attracted to a dissimilar person than to a relative based off of pheromone levels and stuff like that.
Okay.
So like for the reproductive health of a society, most people would go to diversify their genetic lineage.
But then you look at throughout history and probably
except these guys.
I mean, yeah, Dove's entire family looks identical to one another. So there's been a lot of inbreeding in his family, and it's kind of worked out for them. Maybe others it hasn't, right? Exactly. But there's a lot of similarity. I mean, like,
yeah, but they all have asma, so it's like the good with the bad.
How do you have asthma with that nose, right? You feel like you could get some oxygen in there.
It's the bend. It's the air.
It gets clogged right there.
Yeah. Not the part. It's not aerodynamic.
Yeah, we need to hire a contractor. You got to straighten it out. Just get a smooth flow.
That's why they all get nose jobs. That makes sense.
It's a deviated septum or whatever. Anyway, I thought this was an interesting discussion. Like, it's cool to chew on these things. I don't know. What is your take on it? What do you think determines our decision making of right and wrong?
I think there is something innate. I do think that there's like a biological natural law. And like as someone that believes in God, I would like to believe that there is some type of like order that God put into the universe that people can come to know without God.
Yeah.
But then additionally, if you come to follow some type of faith background, that those things are also instilled.
Okay.
But then I also think that those things get like antiquated over time. Like the Levitical laws of like eating pork and stuff probably existed in a specific time frame where pork was very dangerous.
Right.
And then as time has gone on, it's no longer as dangerous. Sorry, Jews and Muslims.
Yeah.
And Ethiopian Christians, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's like a bunch of people that don't eat pork.
Wow.
Which you start to look at how many people don't eat pork.
You're like, why are we eating this shit?
Yeah, maybe they're onto something. But then I think I think all the faiths that have persisted probably have a lot of roots of the same things that help society prosper.
So you could make the argument that reinforcing those beliefs might be the best thing for society at large.
To a point. But we also live in a non-theocratic society.
Yes.
So like as someone that lives in America that likes religious freedom, I also don't want to be bound by the mandates of any specific religion.
Yes.
Whether that be Islam or Christianity or Judaism.
Right.
So
because it infringes on your personal freedom.
Right. Like it would be nice if there was a Catholic country that existed that had some type of Catholic theocratic laws that if I so chose I could move to. Yeah. But I like to live in America where people can practice freely whatever they want.
I do as well. But he was looking at I think he's chalking this up to like a leftist issue, and maybe he has issues with leftist ideology, and it's easy to reconstruct an argument afterwards and like place it on top of it. But he's pointing at birth rates declining, and he's trying to say if you see more like left-leaning ideology in countries, you see birth rates declining, and he's going, okay, is this a like repercussion of this way of thinking where you just do what makes you feel good? Now, maybe you have less people, and maybe society collapses hundreds of years now. Who fucking knows? But I don't know if we build society simply to create more people.
Right.
Yes, there's a way to make society so we just make more people, and it is more beneficial for that specific thing. But I don't know if that's the goal of civil society.
Right. I could also argue this is, I think, a slippery slope argument. Yeah. Like it seems fallacious on its onset to say like the logical conclusion of XYZ philosophy is decimation of a population. Because you could say the inverse, that the logical conclusion of like a hyper-religious society is going to be like oppression of women and gay people getting murdered.
Right. You can make the exact same argument in just an oppressive way.
So to me, I'm like, it seems like kind of misguided. I don't know if that was intention, but like I think it's framed poorly.
Yeah.
You could also make the point that like is a declining birth rate or a increasing birth rate like positive for society? We don't know. If it declines, does society actually get better? There's more resources per person. Like, does utopia happen because there's more resources per person, or is it an increasing birth rate? Does that actually make the earth die faster? Like we don't actually know.
I've always wondered that. I'm like, maybe this is just the order of things, and we're just like leveling out.
Yeah.
Like we used to put so much emphasis on have as many kids as possible.
Yeah.
And now like look at the little resources we all have and everybody's complaining. So maybe this is just like, hey, balancing itself out.
Yeah, it's a leveling, a natural leveling.
Which even that idea, I think, comes out of like agrarian societies and shit. And this is from someone whose parents had 7 kids.
Yeah.
That like, I'm pretty sure even prior to like pastoralist and agrarian societies, people were having like 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah.
Like women were having like their periods like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So
they had it way later?
Yeah, they were having it later. And so like in hunter-gatherer societies, they still have them later. And then typically women would breastfeed the whole time. They were emitting like prolactin and estrogen so that they weren't able to get pregnant for longer periods of time. So
it would separate the kids. That's an important component to talk about.
Yeah.
Like when a woman is breastfeeding, it's much harder for her to get pregnant. So if you're breastfeeding for 2, 3, 4 years, then you have a 5-year gap in between kids. And if you had 4 kids, think about that. That's 20 years of baby making. So if you start at 18, you're done at 38.
And you might have 3, 4 kids.
You have 3 or 4 kids. That's assuming every pregnancy went to term. Like, that's a really interesting point.
And I talked to an anthropologist that said, like, it's actually potentially more beneficial for children to have more individualized time with the parent. So, like, having multiple kids really close together could be detrimental for the development of kids, that giving them more undisputed attention for like 4 or 5 years is actually better for like the survival of the species.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
And this is in hunter-gatherer societies where people are just like eating off the land and living off the land.
Well, 100%. I mean, like you have a kid right now, you know how much attention they require. Like they're walking around, you need to walk with them every single second, every day. If you have one that's 5 and they kind of know the rules where they should go, they can almost like help out a little bit with the little kid. They're not looking after them, but they can teach the kids something like that. You can ask them to hand you something and you can look after the other kid. But looking after 2 kids that are under 3 years old, I mean, it takes a village shit. Like that's where you need grandma.
Yeah.
Or you need grandpa. You need somebody else looking after those kids. It takes a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think about this question a lot, like what does it mean to actually be human, and what is best for humans? And I think people go back and they go like, oh, like 2,000 years ago. But like that's still like a very recent development in humanity. So like, is it potential we go 10,000 years ago? Like Homo sapiens have been walking around the way we are for like what, 100,000 years?
Yeah.
So like 2,000 years is just a blip. So like, have humans existed for most of the time in the way that we were 10,000 years ago, living, walking around, having sex, eating a mango?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is that what most of humanity has been? So then when it comes to like moral frameworks, like should we be trying to go back farther than we're really looking at it? You know what I mean?
Wait, explain that.
Like, should we be going back to like, okay, what are humans really supposed to be doing?
Okay.
So like, oh, we should have a bunch of kids because that's what people did 1,000 years ago. Well, it's like, well, actually, that is a blip in the overall scope where for most of human history, people were having 3 or 4.
Yeah, once we started farming, then we start going, let's have 7.
So you have societal explosion, but also you need people to work the farms.
Work the land.
So it's like
It's like your retirement policy almost. You have 1 kid. How are they going to take care of their family and you and your wife when you're too old to do anything? You have 7. You can mitigate that risk across 7 different bodies.
That's the like big issue with the declining birth rate in certain countries. They have aging populations that no one is there to take care of.
This is like Japan, right?
South Korea and certain other countries.
I mean, every developed country, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, America is going to run into it in the next like 50 to 80
and
years.
so again, the concern is that there won't be enough, or that the burden of the parents and the grandparents will be on the grandkids, and they just won't have enough resources to protect, provide.
Yeah, and they also won't have enough time for themselves to benefit society. They're spending all their time taking care of an older
That's
population.
right. They have to develop a business. They have to create something. They have to.
See, Cuomo was just trying to help out.